Hey guys, tonight we're slipping into the candlelit world of medieval medicine, where people tried cheating death in the Middle Ages with vinegar-soaked sponges, saintly relics, herb gardens, and a ledger's quiet logic. It wasn't pretty, it wasn't modern, and weirdly, a lot of it worked just enough to keep hope breathing. I'll guide you through smoke-thick rooms, whispered remedies, and the small routines that outwitted panic. If this kind of strange, soothing history speaks to you, gently tap like and subscribe, only if you truly enjoy what we do here. And tell me in the comments where you're watching from, and what time it is right now. I love seeing this little map of night owls around the world. Now dim, the lights get comfortable, and let your eyes drift closed. We'll handle the rest. You step into the dim shop where brass bowls wink like sleepy moons, and the air tastes of iron and rosemary. A barber surgeon nods, twirling a razor that's seen more arguments than a bishop. In medieval medicine, sickness isn't a monster. It's weather inside you. Hot, cold, wet, dry, out of season. Your pulse stutters like a drum with stage fright. Your tongue wears the map of last week's stew. We'll balance it, he says, like a man rearranging furniture during a thunderstorm. You sit because cheating death in the Middle Ages usually starts by pretending you're calm. First, the lecture, gentle, confident, and only slightly terrifying. You're a mobile vineyard, he explains. Blood, warm and wet. Phlegm, cold and wet. Yellow bile, warm and dry. Black bile, cold and dry. Get the blend wrong, and life sours. So he reads you like a pantry. Your mood, too choleric. Your sleep, too little. Your urine's colour, a weather report in a bowl. In medieval medicine, diagnosis is poetry with props. You hold still while he counts your breath, sniffs a sachet of sage, and mutters to Saturn. Because cheating death in the Middle Ages means negotiating with both the body and the sky. Now the staging, cloth rolled, elbow naked to candlelight, a bowl waiting like a halo with practical ambitions. The lancet glints, triangular, tidy, almost polite. He warms your skin with wine, and a prayer that sounds like housekeeping. Outside, a cart creaks. Inside, the room narrows, to wrist, steel, and breath. A vein for heat, he murmurs, choosing the median cubital as if it once owed him money. You nod, as if you understand that veins have weather and tempers. In this theatre, confidence is anesthesia, and rhythm is mercy. The snick is soft, quieter than your nerves expected, louder than your pride likes. Blood brightens the bowl like a rising idea, steam meeting rosemary in a small treaty. The barber watches flow, as if reading measures in a psalm. Too fast, and you're burning. Too slow, and melancholy hoards the cornice. He pinches, wipes, and listens to the colour change its mind. A little vinegar tames the air. A little wool tamps the world back into a reasonable shape. You discover time has elbows. Because blood is opinionated, he pairs it with cousins, cupping to persuade stubborn skin. A poultice to talk heat down, a mustard plaster that lectures your shoulders about ambition. You feel your body argue in several languages. Sting, warmth, release, like a council meeting that might actually get something done. He sets a cup, lifts a welt like a scarlet question mark, and answers it with a clean cloth. He isn't chasing the sickness, he's correcting grammar. Astrology enters with the dignity of a bureaucrat. No bleeding under a Leo moon, he warns. The heart dislikes competition. Best today. Waning moon, cool wind, Mars distracted. He draws a small chart on parchment, a map where your elbow goes to church. Skeptical. Sure. But remember, when nights were long and microscopes were rumours, the sky was the only clock big enough to trust. In medieval medicine, even doubt pays the tithe of timing. Then comes diet, like a sermon with spoons. Temper beef with vinegar. Drown phlegm in thyme. Let rosemary teach memory to stop misplacing itself. He forbids raw pears for 3 days, cold and wet, the enemies of your current project, and prescribes a wine posset that tastes like bedtime managed by an aunt. You're learning that cheating death in the Middle Ages isn't one miracle. It's 5 small obediences practiced when you'd rather be dramatic. Boredom, it turns out, is curative when repeated on schedule. The smell of iron fades, the bowl cools. Your head feels a size you can own. He swaps the lancet for a feather and draws a line of salve that promises tomorrow won't hiss at you. Bandage on, lecture off, fee negotiated with the same calm as the cut. He insists on a nap, the kind that knits before it dreams, and you're startled how persuasive a bench can be when a blanket agrees. Outside, hooves and gossip. Inside, your pulse tries walking in a straight line. Now the audit of ordinary habits. Sleep like a monk, breathe like a miller, don't eat like a wedding. He shows you a urine chart painted in careful yellows, a rainbow of what to confess and when. Pace the yard at sunrise, he says, until your thoughts stop shouting. You think of modern clinics and bright machines, but here the tools are rhythm and attention. In medieval medicine, the doctor treats your day first and your disease second, because days relapse faster than bodies. What if blood turns stubborn? Leeches become consultants who bill in ounces. He keeps them in a jar like ugly pearls, swaying in river gossip. You flinch. He smiles. The leech does its quiet arithmetic and falls away like a solved problem. A dab of ash, a square of linen, a reminder that patience can be rented from creatures with terrible PR. Even in this, he's gentle, reminding you that flesh listens best when it isn't humiliated. He tells a story because stories carry doses deeper than syrups. A reeve bled by moonlight survived a fever that bragged. A nun who skipped the cup and kept the schedule anyway. A mason who traded ale for gruel and stopped courting his coffin. You grin despite yourself. Wisdom here is local and gossipy, spread by benches and bread. Cheating death in the Middle Ages often looked like neighbours remembering the same rule on the same day. Before you leave, he oils the lancet, and your courage with equal care. The bowl, half a sunset, goes to the hearth. The apron forgets you politely. He writes 2 lines for your wife. Air the bed, warm the broth, wake him if the night forgets its manners. You step into the lane lighter by a cup and heavier by 5 instructions. The sky continues pretending it's in charge. What? A Charles Lemnikion? Penduits? Why dinis? You decide not to argue. And just when you think the day's lesson has learned your name, he mentions a pilgrim charm against fevers, quartz, thread, a psalm whispered through a keyhole. Not to replace the bowl, he says, but to keep the mind from pacing holes in the floor. In medieval medicine, body and faith are not rivals. They're roommates sharing a draughty room. If you're ready, we'll walk from the barber's brass to the apothecary's glass next. Theria's jars, electuaries like honeyed thunder, and the strange comfort of shelves that smell like a garden arguing with a church. You push through a door that sighs of beeswax and smoke, and the shop greets you like a low hymn. Shelves climb the walls, each jar a rumour with a label. Theriac, electuary, cordial, tincture. The mortar thud and pestle grind, keep time the way monks keep prayer. A ribbon of vinegar tang threads the air, arguing politely with rosemary and sage. Here, medieval medicine smells like a kitchen that went to university and never left. You're not chasing miracles, you're cheating death in the Middle Ages, one measured spoon at a time. The apothecary reads you without making a speech, and that's half the magic. Pulse counted tongue inspected a quick horoscopy swirl that turns worry into weather. He notes the balance of humours, like a tailor notes shoulder slope and hem. Warm and dry have been bragging, he says, picking wormwood with the care of a jeweller. A line on the phlebotomy calendar gets a soft frown. Timing is a quiet instrument. You learn that in this world, dosage is diplomacy and patience is currency. He starts with a decoction because roots want a long conversation with water. Comfrey and yarrow simmer until the room remembers how to breathe. Steam lifts, carrying faint incense and memories of damp fields after rain. Then an infusion, lavender and thyme soaked like advice, whispered through linen. A syrup follows, sweetened with honey, so the medicine arrives with better manners. You taste calm before you taste flavour, and that's not an accident. On the counter sits the famous treacle jar, as theatrical as a saint's reliquary. Inside, a parliament of spices, cloves, saffron, myrrh, and rumours of snake. He calls it Mithridate today, Theriac tomorrow. Branding is older than merchants admit. Not for heroics, he says, for margins, and the spoon agrees by shining. One pea-sized electuary presses heat into retreat without starting a war. Consider it a ceasefire you can swallow. You watch him build a poultice the way a mason builds an arch. Layer, press, reassure. Plantain for skin that forgot its temper, frankincense to teach wounds to speak softly. A salve of rose water, and wax slides across cloth, like a promise that keeps itself. He labels it for the night sister who respects instructions more than speeches. Change when the cloth stops telling the truth, he says, and you nod. Even dressings need an exit strategy. Above the bench hangs the zodiac man, all ribs and rulerships, a calendar wearing skin. Not because starlight fixes fevers, but because clocks were rare and skies were punctual. He circles an auspicious hour, so your cordial cooperates with morning rather than quarrels with Ma. You realize astrological medicine was really schedule management with better illustrations. When to brew, when to sip, when to sleep. It's logistics pretending to be myth. Death dislikes people who keep appointments wisely. The doctrine of signatures comes out, like a riddle you can smell. Walnut for the head, lungwort for breath, plantain leaves shaped like tongues that soothe them. He doesn't swear by it. He negotiates with it, because symbols carry patience farther than lectures. A sprig of rue goes in your pocket, to boss bad luck around without being rude. 2 cloves in your cup, so your mouth remembers it's not a battlefield. You leave, grinning at the way. Meaning can be medicinal. For breath and rooms that sulk, he writes a recipe called survival. A fumigation of juniper in an aromatic burner where drafts naturally travel. A bowl of 4 thieves vinegar by the door, garlic, wine, and stubborn optimism. Sweet smoke rooms, bitter sponge hands, he says, and you can hear the poster already. He marks your door with a sign, the watchmen understand. Policy in chalk. The house will exhale on purpose tonight. You ask about defensive charms, and he doesn't roll his eyes. That's important. He shows a relic ribbon, a pilgrim badge, a sliver of bone that calmed 4 widows. Not instead of, he says, alongside, because minds that feel seen swallow instructions better. He packs a tiny cordial for courage, not just cough. Faith and medieval medicine share a hallway and borrow each other's candles. Hope is a dosage form too, just stored in different jars. Some shelves are wealthy enough to be suspicious. Bezoar stone, ambergris, unicorn horn, that sailed from a narwhal with a sense of humour. He keeps them like museum pieces and prescribes them like last resorts. Most days he chooses garlic vinegar and a schedule you'll actually keep. Cheating death in the Middle Ages wasn't luxury, it was literacy in small things. Wash here, boil that, open this, close that. A choreography for stubborn days. You feel safer because your hands have jobs now. He packs a travel kit like a monk packs vows. A vial of tincture for coughs that forget their inside voice. Tablets of pressed sage for bellies that want attention more than food. A parchment of pictures for nights when words misbehave. Where to be thou? He thought it king. You tuck it into your cloak and realize preparedness is the opposite of panic. Even your pocket exhales differently. Before you go, the candle gutter steadies, as if the room approved your homework. He ties your bundle with twine, not ceremony, and charges a fee that buys both herbs and dignity. Outside, the lane smells of rain and the ash drift from bakeries that outlived yesterday. You're walking proof that small, repeatable choices can stave off death longer than speeches. If you're ready, we'll knock at the infirmary next. Monks with ledgers, pest house protocols, and beds that learned how to save time, so time could save people. You step through a door the colour of discipline, where beeswax and smoke shake hands. An infirmary monk greets you with a bow that sounds like linen rustle. Candles murmur. A bell keeps time like a patient heart. Here, medieval medicine wears habits, not hero capes. You smell vinegar tang and rosemary arguing politely with faint incense. You're about to see how cheating death in the Middle Ages looked like good housekeeping. Triage happens in whispers that know their job. Why? Will you turn? Our hospital brother checks your pulse, then your breath's grammar. A quick horoscopy swirl translates worry into a colour wheel. He notes sleep, appetite, and the weather of your moods. Diagnosis feels like reading a room that happens to be you. No drama, just decisions that behave. Beds become tools, not furniture. Pulled off damp walls, face toward drafts that keep promises. Straw ticks aired in the cloister, beaten until they forget old stories. Curtains hang like quiet boundaries for privacy without dieta. A candle gutter stands upright, proof the room now breathes in sentences. Crack shutters accept a finger-width treaty with the wind. Air is the first prescription, and it's free. Washing is liturgy. Vinegar washes for hands, rose water for dignity. Linen rotates by bell. Clean used, retired, like monks at prayer. Basins live where elbows expect them, not where guilt suggests. You learn the rinse song. Palms, thumbs, backs, rinse, repeat. Even fatigue can remember that chorus at midnight. Clean becomes catchy, which is exactly the point. Pharmacy lives in a side room that smells like a thoughtful garden. Tianxian, decoction, for roots that need long conversations with water. Injun for leaves, sage, lavender, thyme whispering, counsel through steam. A syrup sweetened with honey so stubborn throats cooperate. Poultice, plaster, and salve, labelled for nurses who obey verbs. Gershowski. Therapy arrives by spoon, cloth, and schedule, not trumpets. Timing is a theology. The brothers practice with clocks and sky. An almanac marks auspicious hours, the way bakers mark heat. Bells braid day into manageable ropes. Dose, rest, prayer, rinse. They consult the zodiac man, mostly to remember restraint. No bleeding when the heart is under Mars's noisy management. Logistics masquerade as cosmology, and the body relaxes. Contagion gets architecture, not speeches. Pest house wing holds an isolation ward that doesn't humiliate. Doors wear chalk marks the watchmen understand without shouting. Windows keep a measured truce with winter and rumour. Beds sit at distances that teach breath to mind its manners. The ward feels strict and strangely kind. Rooms learn to smell like survival. Fumigation with juniper draws a soft blue sentence across rafters. Herb bundles, rue and wormwood, hang where cues of breath form. Sweet smoke here, vinegar sponge there, policy by perfume. The candle steadies, the draught remembers its route. You start trusting the air again. Food becomes medicine that forgot to be vain. Warm gruel for stomachs that grew shy. Posset for evenings that won't agree. Bread softened in broth. Soul pride doesn't notice it's being helped. Water flavoured with rosemary to persuade sips into becoming tradition. You're told to sleep like someone saving for morning. Rest is prescribed, not negotiated. Outside, processions chant. Inside, ledgers sing. Arms ring bells, nurses ring spoons, both matter differently. Relics visit, but schedules stay. Faith and routine sharing a bench. Watchmen patrol door markings instead of rumours. The city bows to order long enough to heal. You feel culture deciding to cooperate. Noons. Records breathe. Names, fevers, windows opened, linens boiled. A small column for mercy. Extra blankets, returned ladles, borrowed naps. The hospital brother writes as if ink were a kind of antiseptic. When losses come, they're counted without losing manners. Thin hope grows roots where the numbers stay honest. You understand why quiet resolve is contagious. Before dusk, you walk the aisle that learned your name in one afternoon. Leather creak, candle hush, ash drift. Sensory proof of protocol. Your hands know the rinse song without asking your mind. The monk nods like someone filing trust carefully. You leave, lighter by fear and heavier by instructions. Next stop waits beyond the gate. The leper house, where distance is kindness and community, learns how to embrace without touching. You reach the leper house at the edge of fields, where wind keeps its sleeves rolled up. A wooden clapper announces arrivals the way a bell announces patience. Date is painted with a small cross, and the word "Pax," just big enough for tired eyes. Inside, the air holds beeswax and smoke, plus a faint vinegar tang at the door. Here, medieval medicine looks like rules that remember names. You're not exiling people. You're training space to be merciful. The warden greets you with glove and bow ritual that dignifies distance. A strip of chalk dives greeting from embrace, conversation from contagion. Step there. I'll stand here, he says, and the room relaxes. Lanterns hang low to soften the geometry of separation. In this place, cheating death in the Middle Ages means teaching kindness to travel by voice. You let your leather creak just once, then let quiet speak. Admission is a psalm sung in forms. Name, village, season, the patches began. A deacon witnesses, not to accuse, but to remember who owes whom a visit. Hands wash in warmed rose water. The bowl makes room for dignity. A clerk notes where the family stands, outside the hedge, at even song. Horoscopy is gentle, a glance that asks rain about tomorrow. Diagnosis is restraint with paperwork. Lodgings face the wind in measured degrees, beds pulled off the stone like boats from shore. Curtains are modest boundaries that do not pretend to be walls. Rushes are fresh. Straw ticks are beaten until they forget yesterday's cough. The candle gutter steadies, proof the room has learned to breathe on purpose. Windows admit a finger width of honest chill. Drafts obey without drama. You prescribe air as if it were a cordial. Routines tame dread, because dread hates schedules. Clappers for approach, bells for meals, spoons for washing, a hymn for lights. Vinegar washes at thresholds, sweet smoke of juniper where breath cues. Poultices and salves labelled in letters big enough for dusk. Heart for linens, clean, used, retired, circles like a patient moon. You post the rinse song where hands already pause. Food keeps conversation with the body when words run out of courage. Warm pottage bread softened in broth. Posset at nightfall for sore pride. Salt measured kindly, spice enough to remind tongues they're still invited. Water brightened with rosemary, so sipping becomes a habit. You time meals to prayer, so loneliness has a partner. Hunger unclenches, evenings behave. The chapel is small, the echo smaller. The priest steps no farther than the chalk. Relics rest in the doorway, so faith crosses distance without breaking it. Prayers are said in the key of daily chores, not spectacle. Penance is exchanged for patience, miracle for method. You watch resignation loosen into thin hope. Doctrine bends just enough to hold. Law visits in shoes that remember mud, beadle, reeve, guard. They check the quarantine cordon without inventing theatre. Markers at the lane warn carts kindly, not angrily. Alms are left on a table that learns to be generous and clean. The record of gifts is neat, because gratitude deserves order. Coins buy fuel, not rumours. What even sees, passion takes shield, it's facing well else. I carried it pulled it you will. Craft keeps hands from negotiating with despair, spinning in sunlit corners, mending in shaded ones. Tasks chosen for breath, not pity. A loom clicks like a patient metronome. Thread remembers its path. You assign window captain, hearth steward, garden steward. Purpose is the gentlest plaster you know. Even the silence stops limping. Visitors arrive with eyes full of apology and baskets full of bread. The hedge teaches conversation to be precise, and somehow sweeter. Fathers lift clappers, children wave ribbons tied to sticks. You stand back, not to vanish, but to make room for their courage. The actions travel better after tears are allowed politely. The gate closes on time, and nobody argues. Hazards get names, so they stop being ghosts. Miasma on windless days, bad air after the tannery's fire, fever when rain sulks. You answer each with verbs: air, rinse, space. Sing, herb bundles, sage and rue, hang where breath lingers too long. Small, cordial, waits for dusk, courage in a spoon. Death keeps the appointment outside the hedge more often than not. Before you leave, you walk the perimeter like a sentence you want to memorize. Keys, clappers, chalk, windows, coals, each with its duty and its hour. The ledger closes like a careful prayer. The bell writes a comma in the day. Your wide brim hat tastes of ash and lavender. You've taught distance to mean care instead of exile. Next, you'll need to teach the market to breathe. Crowded stalls, ringing coins, and the delicate art of keeping trade lively while rumour stays bored. Dawn finds you at the market gate, where carts argue in wooden vowels, and bread sings from ovens. Gulls heckle, coppers clink, a candle gutter inside a stall tests the draft like a tiny diplomat. Your cane taps the cobbles, left for lanes, right for water, pause for posters. Inside the beak you taste vinegar tang and damp canvas, trying to be brave. This is medieval medicine done at full volume, with onions for a chorus. You're here to show trade how to inhale without stealing anyone's breath. First lesson. Markets need geometry more than speeches. Windward in leeward out, banners with arrows, fat enough for fatigue to read. Stalls rotate a quarter turn, so faces meet goods, not each other's lungs. Aisles widen by a barrel's width. Benches learn to stand politely apart. The candle gutter straightens, proof that rules can be drawn, not shouted. Even the loudest hawker sells quieter when the air cooperates. Tools get stations, habits get names, so they'll come when called. Ladles nap in vinegar, cups wear ribbon corners, so sips don't travel. Scales stand where drafts stroll. Money tables get cloths you can boil. A herb bundle Rosemary and rue, hangs where cues form naturally. Posters use pictures first. Bucket, hand, window, spoon. When tired minds don't have to translate, compliance shows up early. 2-point captains, the crowd will follow without rolling its eyes. Lane keeper with a bell, a water steward with a ledger, a cat quartermaster with a cat. Children love the titles. Adults love that children love them. Watchman swaps swagger for schedules. The beadle counts, not scolds. Coins by soap, straw, buckets. Boring things that save the day. Boredom is the prettiest armor you'll wear outdoors. Food vendors get choreography that tastes like mercy. Fish on slats above slate, not puddles that collect rumours. Root heaps on boards, grain sacks lifted on planks, so rats miss their cue. Spill buckets between stalls, referee elbows before tempers arrive. Sweet smoke fumigation, juniper or wormwood, threads rafters at noon. You call it scent. The crowd calls it trust without knowing why. Crowd control by cadence, not threat. Every hour the spoon bell rings. Wash, sip, wipe, wait. Verbs only, no poetry. A boy hums the rinse song, and 50 hands remember the steps. You praise the quickest clean like it's carpentry. Pride does the rest. A vinegar sponge lives at each entrance like a polite bouncer. Date begins to behave like a lung. Diagnosis happens in motion with manners. You walk the aisles listening for coughs that argue, eyes that shine wrong. A nod to a storewife, 2 questions, a touchless pulse by timing breaths. Those who need shade, find it where you planned, for stubbornness. A thimble, cordial, for courage plaster, dressings, for scrapes that fib. Cheating death in the Middle Ages often looks like finding the tired first. Money wants to sprint. You make it stroll. Coin trays rotate through vinegar washes. Cloths boil in the hour bell. Scribes log weights on windows, open not rumours and regrets. Fines are receipts for soap, never theatre. Praise is public and costs nothing. Board lists model draft, clean ladle. Quiet tuck winners. Competition moves from throats to pegs where it belongs. Street music learns the policy key. Pipers set up lured so breath has somewhere polite to go. Jugglers mark circles with chalk. One body, one blanket, one applause. Preachers climb barrels in the draft lane, or not at all. You'd be amazed how holy a sermon sounds when the air approves. Noise forgets to be dangerous and remembers to be festive. Waste and water are rival guilds. You make them collaborate. Night soil carts arrive at dusk, leave before rumour wakes. Barrels live at corner posts. Clean here, used there, retired father. Ladles get ranks. Copper for water, wood for ale, none for buckets. Signs are drawn, not written, because eyes arrive more faithfully than literacy. Refuse leaves like a well-managed exile, quiet, on time, not missed. When weather sulks, you borrow time from fabric and fire. Canvas sheds tilt, ropes get retied, braziers glow at the end of lanes. Shutters crack to finger widths, smoke learns the exit you rehearsed. A candle gutter tests the breeze and salutes. You've turned a storm into a scheduling problem and solved it with pegs. The crowd stays bys, laugh, busy enough to heal a little. By dusk, the market has a pulse. You could set a watch by. Cats with bells patrol grain like small auditors. Rats change careers. Posters wrinkle at the edges. Good. It means hands found them. Your ledger closes with names, weights, windows, and 3 stubborn corners circled. Inside the beak, lavender and bread smoke sign a quiet truce. Tomorrow, the city gates and traveller screenings, questions with maps, chalk that makes sense, and the art of letting commerce pass while letting contagion wait outside. The gate wakes early, a jaw of timber and iron that chews the road into names. Watchmen warm their hands over braziers. Beeswax and smoke share the air. Your cane taps the stones, left for lanes, right for water, pause for posters. Inside the beak you taste vinegar tang and a rumour of rain. This is medieval medicine, translated into traffic rules. We'll keep trade moving and teach breath to behave at the same time. First geometry, windward in, leeward out, arrows fat enough for fatigue. Carts lined by cargo, grain, cloth, timber, each with a patient distance. Foot travellers get ribbons by colour, so crowds sort themselves politely. Handle gutter tests the draft and stands at attention. When air has lanes, tempers retire early. The gate begins to breathe on purpose. Manifests act like pulse charts. You listen the way clerks read. Origin. Days on the road, sick aboard rats seen near sacks. One clerk logs weights. You log weather inside faces. Questions in a cadence. Fever, chills, cough, odd dreams. Your examination stick measures honesty when words wobble. Polite is faster than loud here. Not everyone needs the same door. That's policy, not prejudice. Low risk through the green lane with a rinse and a nod. Maybe risk to shade with water bread and a second look. High risk to the lazaretto boat shed outside the wall. Clean, quiet, kind. Not yet is often how we cheat death in the Middle Ages. Delay becomes medicine when it's scheduled. Hand stations sit where hands already pause. Ladles nap in vinegar. Cups wear coloured corners to keep sips local. A bowl of four thieves, vinegar guards the jam like a small bouncer. Children learn the rinse song. Adults follow children. You praise the quickest clean like it's carpentry. Pride does half your work for free. Maps make mercy legible. A wallboard shows inns, wells, and the pest house lane in pictures. Red dots for shade, blue for water, gold for markets. Breathing well. Strangers stop asking and start navigating. Confusion is a disease of signage. We cure it with arrows. The watch smiles because questions shrink. Timing is logistics wearing astrology's hat. We open the heavy lane after the wind turns friendly. Fumigation breaks at the hour bell, so smoke and patience aligned. The almanac notes auspicious hours, mostly to prevent overdoing. Even your skepticism likes a schedule. The sky remains punctual, which is useful. Cargo gets grammar. Rumour hates grammar. Grain sacks ride on planks. Bales sit apart so drafts commute. Jars with sloped throats wait where rat runs. Prefer shadows. Quaid. Cats with bells earn quartermaster titles and applause. Spill buckets referee elbows before tempers wake. Trade keeps its dignity while risk loses its footing. When weather sulks fabric negotiates, canvas windbreaks tilt. Ropes learn better knots. Braziers glow like punctuation. Shutters crack a finger width. Smoke chooses the exit you rehearsed. A herb bundle, rue and wormwood, hangs near queue corners. Sweet smoke means we've thought about you. Crowds calm when the air smells literate. Records keep fear from improvising. Names, origins, ribbons issued, windows opened, water boiled. A small column for mercy. Bread given, naps granted, cats deputized. The ledger closes like a careful prayer after dusk. Numbers become blankets when they're honest. We hold death at the door with arithmetic and manners. Rumor arrives, disguised as urgency. We give it chores. Chalk that lane, count those ladles, post the poster lower. Arguments dissolve into straighter lines and cleaner buckets. The beadle counts, not scolds. The watchmen trade swagger for schedules. Coins buy soap, straw rope, not theatre. Boredom is the most elegant armour in public. By evening, the gate sounds like a lung with good posture. Cats patrol. Bells take shorter sentences. Ash drifts without sulking. Inside the beak, lavender suggests sleep. But you finish the loop. You circle 2 stubborn corners on the map and hand the clerk a better arrow. Trade hums. Panic forgets its lines. Next we'll tend the river ferries, rope, tide and passengers who swear water cures bad air until water remembers to argue. You reach the landing at first light, where the river exhales like a giant animal, waking slow, tar warming to a sleepy shine along the pilings. Ropes creak, gulls editorialize, and the ferry's planks answer with a hollow heartbeat. Inside the beak, your breath picks up brine pitch, and the familiar vinegar tang that says order travels with you. This is medieval medicine, translated into current and rope, lanes drawn on water, timing sewn to tide. If we're cheating death in the Middle Ages, we'll do it with oars that keep rhythm and rules that breathe. Start with geometry. The river will respect. Windward, boarding leeward disembark, one direction for breath arriving, another for breath leaving. So the ferry doesn't argue with itself. You chalk arrows on the gangway, and tie ribbons on the rail where elbows want to pause. Benches turned toward cargo, not faces, teaching conversation to keep a polite distance. Candle gutter tests the ferry's draft and, pleased, stands up straight. When air has lanes, even on water, tempers retire early. The ferryman is your first ally and your quickest teacher. He knows where eddies hide and where rumour anchors. You know where coughs begin and where patience runs out. Together, you stage, hands here, feet there, wait for the bell. A choreography simple enough to remember sleepy. A vinegar sponge lives by the gangplank, like a small bouncer with perfect manners. Ladle snap in vinegar. Cups wear ribbon corners so sips don't travel. Praise the neatest boarding as if it were carpentry. Pride rows faster than lectures. Manifests act like pulse charts that learn to float. Origin days on the river, sick aboard. Rats seen near sacks. The ferryman recites while you read faces. Questions arrive in a cadence. Fever, chills, cough, odd dreams. Who slept under which tarp? Your examination stick measures honesty when words wobble. Green ribbon means straight across. Grey means shade midstream for a second look. Black means the lazaretto raft tucked downriver, where wind behaves. Not yet becomes a kind of medicine when the tide agrees. Cargo gets grammar so rumour can't hide between sacks. Grain rides on planks not bilge. Bales breathe under slatted racks, so drafts commute politely. Jars with sloped throats sit where timber meets shadow. Rat traps that work better than sermons. Cats with bells earn quartermaster titles and taxpayer respect. Nets hang to air out rather than sulk in coils that hoard damp. You'll be amazed how quickly the hold stops smelling like secrets and starts smelling like work. Fumigation on water should sound like cooking, not panic. Juniper curls into blue threads that ride the wind's good sense. Wormwood whispers in corners where breath cues. Time burns to the bell, and the current so smoke collaborates with motion. Ropes get rubbed, not soaked. Canvas learns to dry without sulking. Tar warms into a mood that forgives. The candle steady at midship is your tiny sailors. Salute. The ferry is breathing on purpose now. Fog is just politics with worse visibility, so you govern gently. Lanterns line the gunwales at elbow height. Bells take shorter sentences. The ferryman keeps to the leeward lane you chalked on yesterday's tide mark. Passengers sit by ribbon colour, families together, bravado where eyes can see it. A poster in pictures shows wait, wash, sit, sip, because fog steals literacy first. When the river forgets its face, your rhythm becomes everyone's eyesight. Low tide exposes more than sand. It exposes habits. You stage the slipway with planks that want sulk and buckets that know their corners. A boy hums the rinse song, and 50 hands remember the steps. Watchmen trade swagger for schedules. The beetle counts, not scolds. Coins buy soap, straw rope, boring things that save days. Boredom is the prettiest armor you can wear outdoors, and water respects it. Diagnosis happens midstream with manners and restraint. 2 questions, 1 look, a measured breath timing, while the oar strokes set the metronome. Those who need shade find it under an awning you insisted on rigging yesterday. Plaster dressings replace rags that lied about being clean. A thimble cordial persuades appetite to return to the conversation. You keep privacy with sailcloth curtains that don't perform. Healing travels best when it refuses theatre. Records keep fear from improvising. Names, origins, ribbons issued, windows opened, water boiled, cats deputized. Yes, you log the cats. A small column for mercy. Bread granted, naps allowed, spoons return. Another for corners circled in chalk, where drafts sulk. The ledger closes like a careful prayer at dusk. Numbers turn into blankets when they're honest. The council funds more pegs and fewer speeches. That's policy earning its keep. Storms are just essays the sky writes. You annotate them with ropes and timing. Canvas windbreaks tilt. Knots learn better manners. Braziers glow like punctuation that tells smoke where to exit. Shutters on the river hut open to finger widths so air behaves without boasting. Herb bundles, rue and rosemary, hang where queues form. Their scent says, "We've thought about you," and the crowd calms without knowing why. You've turned weather into a scheduling problem and solved it with pegs. By evening, the river has a pulse you could set a watch by. Cats patrol. Bells speak in polite paragraphs. Ash drifts from the brazier like a blessing that learned to be modest. Inside the beak, lavender suggests sleep you'll borrow later. The ferryman grins because the day didn't bite. Trade hums. Panic forgets its lines. Upstream mills and washhouses wait. The places where water and cloth argue. So we'll take the rinse on ashore and teach it to sing over wheels, vats, and the warm, stubborn breath of dye. You follow the river till it turns noisy and useful, the mill wheel thumping like a steady drum, while washboards rasp in tidy counterpoint. Steam hangs low, tasting faintly of soap, lye, and yesterday's rain baked off pallets. This is where medieval medicine borrows muscles from ordinary work, water tamed by rhythm, cloth coached by rules. You'll stage the rinse song on land, hands, buckets, benches, breath. Keep the repo, waiting by choreographing chores. That's cheating death in the Middle Ages without sounding dramatic. Geometry first, because even water mine's a good diagram. You chalk lanes from intake to wheel, from wheel to sluice, from sluice to vats, so feet don't invent chaos where current already wrote the plan. Benches turn toward work, not faces. Vats sit leeward so steam doesn't gossip in throats. Windows open to finger widths. Shutters learn windward in leeward out. A candle gutter straightens like a tiny foreman who approves the floor plan. when Air Haslane's tempers retire early. At the washhouse door, manners meet soap. Batons. Ladles nap in vinegar. Cups wear ribboned corners so sips stay local. A bowl of Four Thieves vinegar waits like a polite bouncer. A sprig of rosemary hangs where cues form naturally. You post the rinse on in pictures. Palms, thumbs, backs, rinse, repeat. Because eyes arrive earlier than literacy on tired days. Children hum it first. Adults follow children. Compliance arrives disguised as a catchy tune. Even gossip washes up cleaner when the chorus is simple. Millers are your first allies, stubborn and punctual as stones. They know eddies that sulk and planks that lie. You bring drafts that behave and buckets that keep promises. Together, you set sacks here, boards, their cats promoted with bells. Grain rides on slats. Never kisses puddles. Bales get breathing room, so rumours can't hide between threads. Jars with sloped throats sit where timber meets shadow. Rats reconsider their field of study. You praise the neatest stack like it's sculpture, because pride rose faster than lectures. Inside, steam is medicine when supervised, and a lawsuit when vain. You stage vapours like choir parts, hottest above vats, cooler by the windows, none at throat height where talk lies. An aromatic burner whispers juniper along the rafters. Wormwood patrols the corners that hoard damp. Hooks carry linen high for drip and dignity. Floors slope toward drains that actually know they're drains. Candle at mid-room stands upright. Your tiny vote of confidence from physics. Diagnosis happens in motion with manners and restraint. 2 questions, 1 glance, breath timed against the wheel's thump. Fever, chills, cough, odd dreams. Those who need shade, find it under an awning you insisted on yesterday. Those who need distance, walk the blue ribbon lane to a bench with water and bread. Plaster dressings replace rags that lied about being clean. A thimble cordial persuades appetite to reconcile with work. Privacy is a curtain, not a performance. Healing travels best when it refuses theatre. Tools get grammar, so rumour can't borrow them. Paddle tub dolly mangle. Each has a corner and an alibi. Soap rests on a board you can boil, not on the story collecting sill. Buckets wear labels, clean, used, retired, and obey them like monks obey bells. You log ladles the way. Scribes log tithes, counted, rinsed, returned. The beadle, disarmed by good carpentry, counts instead of scolding. Numbers become blankets when they're honest. Clotheslines are politics in sunlight, so you legislate with pegs. Lines run leeward of smoke. Spacing is a rule, not a suggestion. Children earn peg captain ribbons for spotting creep. Damp gathers where you tell it to gather, and then leaves on time. A stray sleeve never migrates into a throat lane. You'd be amazed how much peace happens when linens stop auditioning for drama. Even the geese look impressed, which is rare. Food breaks arguments before they learn to talk. Warm pottage waits at the half-bell posset at dusk when patience pouts. Bread dunks in broth, so pride doesn't notice kindness happening. Water brightened with rosemary persuades sips into becoming tradition. You forbid Boast Ale until tools are hung and floors don't glisten. Nobody complains, because your rules smell like supper. Rest is a dosage form, you write it with spoons. Records keep fear from improvising. Names, loads, windows opened, smoke hours, ladles, boiled, cats deputized. Yes, you log the cats. Small column for mercy. Blankets loaned, naps allowed, spoons returned. Another for stubborn corners, circled in chalk. When the ledger closes like a careful prayer, the wheel coasts into a polite hush. The council funds more pegs and fewer speeches. Policy earns its keep by being pleasantly boring. Weather is an essay. You annotate it with ropes and timing. Sleet. Canvas windbreaks tilt. Not learn better manners. Braziers glow like punctuation that tells smoke where to exit. Heat. Shutters, shade, windows, draft. Work rotates by shadow. Fog. More. Lanterns drop to elbow height. Bells speak in shorter sentences. Posters. Switch from words to pictures. You keep the day legible, even when the sky forgets its handwriting. People remember how to behave because the room remembers first. By dusk, cloth breathes. Floors stop arguing, and the river forgives everyone for needing it. Inside the beak, lavender suggests sleep you'll borrow in installments. Outside, ash drifts from the brazier like modest approval. This is cheating death in the Middle Ages by refusing to be interesting at the wrong moments. Rinse, space, boil, breathe. If you're steady, we'll carry the same choreography into dye houses and tanners, places where colour shouts, lie bites, and order has to sing louder than the vats without raising its voice. You find the dye quarter where the street changes colour before it changes mood. Blue ghosts on cobbles, red freckles on doors, steam tasting of wad, madder, and yesterday's rain boiled twice. Vats breathe like sleeping animals, paddles clack, a boy hums to keep time with his wrists. Inside the beak, you catch vinegar, tang, oak bark, and the honest sting of lie. This is medieval medicine with sleeves rolled, not cures choreography. If we're cheating death in the Middle Ages, we'll do it by teaching colour to inhale without borrowing anyone's breath. Geometry first. Colour respects lines more than lectures. Bass leeward rinses, windward, benches aimed at work, not faces. You chalk lanes, scour, dye, rinse, wring, dry, so feet don't invent detours where steam wants straight roads. Windows accept a finger-width treaty. The great door breathes on a cadence. In on the bell, out on the harp. A candle gutter stands at attention, tiny physics approving your floor plan. When air has lanes, tempers clock out early. Hands meet rules, where hands already pause. Ladles nap in vinegar. Cups wear ribbon corners so sips don't travel. For thieves, vinegar waits by the jam. Like a polite bouncer, garlic and wine doing quiet politics. Posters speak in pictures. Palm, thumb, backs, rinse, repeat. Children hum the rinse song. Adults follow children. Compliance arrives disguised as melody. Even gossip washes up cleaner when the chorus is simple. Walled tubs grumble. Madder smiles. Weld pretends to be sunshine. In a hurry. You stage heat like choir parts, hottest on the far row, cooler near the windows, none at throat height where talk lives. Aromatic burners whisper juniper and wormwood into rafters. Bad air forgets its argument. Hooks ride high for drip and dignity. Floors slope to drains that know their drains. The candle at mid-room stays upright. The room remembers how to breathe on purpose. Tanners work 2 lanes down, where oak bark stacks like paragraphs and hides soak in patience. You divide dirty talk from clean talk. Beamhouse here, currying there, finishing in a wind that minds its manners. Dale urine is a tool, not a rumour. It lives in lidded tubs with clocks, not in stories. Mrs. go downstream. Workers go upstream to eat. You stop disease by teaching chores to keep polite distances. Tools get grammar so rumour can't borrow them. Paddles, tongs, dollies, mangles. Each has a corner and an alibi. Perches on a board you can boil, not on the sill that collects gossip. Buckets wear labels, clean, used, retired, and obey bells like monks. A ledger by the door counts ladles, not excuses. Numbers turn into blankets when they're honest and boring. Diagnosis happens in motion, with manners. 2 questions. 1 glance, breath timed to the paddle's rhythm. Fever, chills, cough, odd dreams. Those who need shade Find it under an awning you insisted on yesterday. Those who need distance take the blue ribbon bench with bread and water. Plaster dressings replace rags that lied about being clean. A thimble cordial persuades appetite to come back to work. Privacy is a curtain, not a performance. Healing travels best when it refuses theatre. Records keep fear from improvising. Names. Dial-out smoke, hours windows opened. Cats deputized. Yes, you log the cats. A small column for mercy. Extra mitts issued. Naps allowed. Spoons returned. Another for corners circled in chalk, where drafts sulk. The ledger closes like a careful prayer. The wheel of the day coasts into a polite hush. Council funds more pegs, fewer speeches. Policy earns its keep by being pleasantly dull. Waste and water are rival guilds. You make them collaborate. Rinse channels run leeward. Slops depart at dusk with lids and witnesses. Night soil carts keep to the far lane. Bark heaps get roofs so rain can't invent soup. Cats with bells audit grain and leather scraps. Rats supply elsewhere. You fine yesterday, not today. You praise publicly and often. Order starts smelling like oak and honesty. Food breaks arguments before they learn to speak. Warm pottage at the half-bell. Posset at dusk when patience pouts. Bread softened in broth, so pride doesn't notice kindness happening. Water brightened with rosemary persuades, sips into becoming tradition. Boast ale waits until tools are hung, and floors don't glisten. Nobody complains. Rest is a dosage form, you prescribe it with spoons. Weather is an essay, you annotate with fabric and time. Sleet. Canvas windbreaks tilt. Knots learn better manners. Braziers glow like punctuation that teaches smoke to leave. Heat. Shutters shade. Drafts commute. Tasks rotate by shadow. Fog. Absent. Lanterns drop to elbow height. Bells use shorter sentences. Posters switch from words to pictures. Even colour behaves when the sky forgets its handwriting. By dusk the dye quarter exhales. Blues truce with reds. Hides lose their sulk. Floors stop writing poems about puddles. Inside the beak, lavender suggests, sleep you'll borrow later. Outside, ash drifts like modest approval. This is cheating death in the Middle Ages by refusing to be interesting at the wrong moments. Rinse, space, boil, breathe. If you're steady, we'll carry the same choreography into bakehouses and cookshops next. Ovens, flour dust, and the careful art of teaching heat to be generous without getting dramatic. You step into the bake quarter at grey dawn, where ovens yawn like red planets. Flour hangs in the air, a soft fog that coats words before they hatch. Peels scrape, loaves thump, ash drifts in small approving sighs. Washing. Inside the beak, you taste yeast, smoke, and the vinegar tang of order. This is medieval medicine translated into heat management and clean hands. We're cheating death in the Middle Ages with timing drafts and bread that listens. Geometry. First because ovens respect chalk more than speeches. Windward dough benches, leeward cooling racks, aisles wide enough for elbows to apologize. Windows cracked to finger widths. The great door inhales on the bell, exhales at the hearth. Candle gutter tests the room's temper and stands at attention. You reroute traffic so breath meets bread only after crust has manners. When air has lanes, tempers clock out early. Hands pause where habits already like to gather, so you build stations there. Ladles nap in vinegar, cups wear ribboned corners to keep sips local. Washtubs live at shoulder, heights sow spines, don't invent excuses. 4 thieves, vinegar watches the jam, like a polite bouncer with garlic breath. Posters use pictures, palm, thumb, backs, rinse, repeat, because eyes arrive before literacy. Children hum the rinse song. Adults follow children without arguing. Heat is choir, not solo, so you score the ovens like music. Firing windows staggered. One roars, one rests, one whispers. Dough proofs where warmth is patient, not boastful. Aromatic burners thread rosemary and wormwood through rafters to tame heavy air. Down soot learns to leave by the exit you rehearsed yesterday. The candle at mid-room approves, barely trembling. Dough benches get grammar, so rumour can't borrow them. Flour here, water there, salt in a lidded jar that minds its temper. Starters wear names and hours like infants at christening. Scrapers hang where wet hands can find them blind. A ledger tracks peels, not excuses, used, rinsed, retired. Numbers become blankets when they're honest and boring. Cookshops next door arguing louder flavours. Stock, smoke, pans like symbols. You divide knife talk from ladle talk with chalk and courtesy. Raw meets fire on one side, finished rests windward with a view. Spill buckets referee elbows before tempers write poetry. A bell paces, tasting spoons, so mouths don't audition for trouble. Even stew learns inside voices when the room breathes on purpose. Meanwhile, diagnosis happens in motion with manners and restraint. 2 questions, 1 glance, breath timed to the peel's scrape. Fever, chills, cough. Shade benches wait for wobbly legs near the leeward window. Plaster dressings replace rags that lied about being clean. A thimble cordial persuades appetite to return without drama. Privacy arrives as a curtain that refuses theatre. Schedules are the theology of heat, and bells the priests. Mix on the prime, proof on the terse. Fire at sext when drafts behave. Cooling racks rotate like constellations. Clockwise today, counter tomorrow for fairness. You consult the almanac mostly to prevent overdoing anything. Astrology becomes logistics wearing a starry hat. Even skeptics love a timetable that rescues crust from pride. Waste and water, rival guilds, learn diplomacy under your cane. Ash cans live leeward, slops leave at dusk with lids and witnesses. Buckets wear labels, clean, used, retired, and obey them like monks obey bells. Cats with bells all eat grain. Rats file for relocation. Streets stop smelling like experiments and start smelling like bread. That's public health disguised as lunch. Money wants to sprint. You make it stroll politely. Coin trays bathe in vinegar. Cloths boil on the hour bell. Receipts list windows opened and spoons returned, not rumours and regrets. Fines by soap, never theatre. Praise is public and free. Aboard names, model draft, clean ladle, quiet tuck champions. Competition moves from throats to pegs where it belongs. Weather writes essays. You will annotate with fabric and time. Sleet? Canvas windbreaks tilt. Knots learn better manners. Braziers glow like punctuation. Heat wave. Shutters shade. Proofing moves to the nave's cool stone. Fog? No. Lanterns drop to elbow height. Bells speak in shorter sentences. Posters switch from words to pictures, because fog steals literacy first. People behave because the room remembers how. By dusk crust sings when tapped, pots stop shouting, and flour floats like a benediction. Inside the beak, lavender suggests the sleep you'll borrow later. Your ledger closes with names, loaves, windows, cats deputized. Yes, you log the cats. Trade hums. Panic forgets its lines in the smell of proofed patience. This is medieval medicine by Spoon, Peel, Bell and Draft. Next stop, parish lanes after dark, curfew bells, watch rounds, and the quiet art of keeping night from inventing fevers. Curfew falls like a careful lid, the bell writing periods across rooftops. Lanterns bloom at elbow height, teaching shadows to mind their manners. Your cane taps a metronome on cobbles, slick with soft ash. Inside the beak you taste vinegar, tang a thread of tallow, a rumour of rain. This is medieval medicine translated into sidewalks and silence. We're cheating death in the Middle Ages by coaching night to breathe. Geometry works after dark the way it works at noon. Windward Alley in Leeward Alley, out arrows fat enough for drowsy eyes. Shutters crack to finger widths. Smoke learns the exit rehearsed at dusk. A candle gutter on a sill tests the draught and stands at attention. When air has lanes, tempers go to bed early. Even whispers forget to be contagious. Watch rounds a choreography, not swagger. First bell. Water jars topped, brazier lids seated, door pegs checked. Second bell. Lane sweep. Refuse to carts, not to rumours. Third. Poster patrol. Pictures straightened where hands already pause. You praise the tidiest threshold like it's carpentry. Pride keeps more promises than fear remembers. Doors talk when you let them. Chalk marks report. Who's resting, who's coughing, who needs bread, not drama. A ribbon at the latch means ring softly, baby sleeping, fever listening. A sprig of rosemary hangs where breath cues even at midnight. The lane learns to read without waking the house. Literacy is a kind of hygiene. Hand stations live where hands already hesitate. Ladles nap in vinegar. Cups where ribbon corners so sips don't wander. A bowl of 4 thieves vinegar guards the jam like a polite bouncer. Children hum the rinse song in their sleep. Adults follow by habit. Soap waits in a tin that remembers to be warm. Clean becomes the default mood. Diagnosis after dark uses different instruments. 2 questions, 1 look, breath, timed to the lantern's swing. You listen for coughs that argue and feet that lie about strength. Shade benches wait under awnings you insisted on yesterday. A thimble cordial persuades appetite to make peace with rest. Privacy is a curtain, not a performance. Noise has curfew rules too. Peddlers speak in measured paragraphs. Cats ring bells, not debates. Musicians take the leeward corner. Sermons pick shorter sentences. Drunks learn the rinse song and somehow behave for 5 minutes. You fine yesterday, not tonight. You praise loudly, often. Order starts smelling like bread, wax and patience. Windows are small clinics when they remember their job. Finger width open, cloth pinned low, lamp set back from the pouty draught. A poster and pictures reminds air in, air out, not across the bed. Candle gutter straightens. The room approves the instructions. You teach the quiet tuck so warmth doesn't panic when someone turns. Comfort becomes policy by accident and stays by design. Street water does chores on schedule. Buckets sit where elbows expect them. Lids keep gossip from steeping. Gullies run clear to the river before rumour wakes. Night soil carts keep the far lane and the promise of no drama. The beadle counts, not scolds. The watch writes numbers. not novels. Arithmetic holds the door, while mercy carries blankets. Curfews without food are just lectures. Posset at the half-bell, warm pottage for late shifts and thin hope. Bread softened in broth, so pride doesn't notice kindness. Water brightened with rosemary persuades, sips into becoming tradition. You forbid boast ale until tools sleep, and floors stop glistening. Rest is a dosage form. You prescribe it with spoons. Records keep fear from improvising in the dark. Names, bells, windows opened, buckets boiled, cats deputized. Yes, logged. A small column for mercy. Blankets loaned, naps granted, spoons returned. Another for stubborn corners circled in chalk, where drafts sulk. The ledger closes, like a careful prayer at midnight. Numbers turn into blankets when they're honest. By last bell, the parish lane exhales. Ash drifts modestly, dogs resign. Silence remembers it's useful. Inside the beak, lavender suggests the sleep you'll borrow later. Your map grows 2 better arrows, and 1 kinder bench. The watchmen trade swagger for schedules, and look relieved. Night didn't invent a fever, it learned a rinse song instead. Next, we step indoors to the sick room itself. Bed ropes, steam bowls, and the quiet theatre of nursing that wins without applause. You push through a door that smells of beeswax, warm linen, and a polite vinegar tang that promises the room has already decided to behave. Bed ropes creak as they're tightened to sleep tight, straw ticks beaten until they forget yesterday's aches and stories. Curtains hang like boundaries that don't pretend to be walls, letting dignity and drafts share custody of the air. A candle gutter tests the window's finger-width opening, and, satisfied, stands at attention. This is medieval medicine conducted in minor keys, rhythm over fanfare, habit over heroics. If we're cheating death in the Middle Ages, we'll do it here with spoons, cloth, and time that keeps its appointments. Triage begins with listening that feels like respect, and sounds like a clock, pulse counted by the hush between breaths, fever read by the grammar of skin and eyes. You examine the tongue like a map, then the room like weather. Is the air lazy? Is the corner sulking? Horoscopy takes a brief bow. Colour, clarity. The little storms that speak through glass. You note. Sleep stolen by cough, appetite, negotiating with pride. Dreams crowding the edges. Diagnosis is simply a conversation that refuses to raise its voice. The bed becomes an instrument tuned by small, faithful gestures. Ropes tightened, bolster turned, tick shaken, foot warmed with a brick wrapped in cloth. Curtains drawn 3/4 so comfort doesn't eclipse air. The window keeps its polite gap. Sheets folded back to the same line. Each round so fatigue can navigate with its eyes closed. A clean cloth sits where your hand will want it before your mind remembers. Order is mercy that learned choreography. Heat arrives, a steam that knows its place and stays out of throats. You set a bowl with rosemary and sage where drafts pass like messenger birds. Another bowl for hands, another for cloths. Labels in big, kind letters that dusk can read. A brazier hums like a low hymn, never boasting, always breathing. Juniper threads the rafters, so stale corners forget their bad habits. The candle at midroom barely trembles, which is how you know the plan is working. Hands learn their roles, the way choir parts learn harmony. Wash, warm, wring. Verbs only, no speeches, posted in pictures above the basin. Ladles nap in vinegar. Cups wear ribboned corners so sips don't wander. Plasters are stacked by size and purpose, salves lined like notes on a staff. A poultice of plantain and honey apologizes to angry skin without being dramatic. The rinse song hums under your breath until everyone's fingers remember it alone. Food is medicine, disguised as patience and delivered on time. Warm gruel for shy stomachs posset at night to keep courage from skipping town. Bread softened in broth so pride doesn't notice kindness happening. Water brightened with rosemary persuades sips to become a custom rather than a chore. You schedule bites with bell time, small, steady, unsurprising. Hunger unclenches when reliability sits at the foot of the bed. Records turn fear into arithmetic, and arithmetic into blankets. Names, windows opened. Linens boiled, bowls refreshed. Hours of sleep that actually slept. A small column for mercy. Extra blanket, borrowed nap. Ladle returned with thanks. Another for corners, circled in chalk where drafts misbehave. The ledger closes like a careful prayer after each round. Numbers remember what hands shouldn't have to carry alone. Privacy is a curtain and a tone, never a performance. You speak at the speed of breath, not the speed of worry. Visitors stand at the window gap, faces in the light, voices by the rules. A ribbon on the latch means speak softly, fever listening, and people obey without resentment. Relics rest at the threshold, so faith travels the rules instead of ignoring them. Comfort keeps its manners and stays. When crises knock, you don't sprint. You accelerate the routine. Cool cloths rotate like dancers who know their marks, not like panic, auditioning for noise. A cordial finds the spoon on the first try because it lives where it belongs. Draft lanes open wider. Smoke learns the exit you rehearsed yesterday. Someone hums the rinse song louder, and hands move faster without getting messy. You discover calm is the quickest tool in the room. Fatigue is a patient too, so you treat the staff with policy, not pep talks. Benches facing the leeward window, cups that stay, spoons that return, naps that count. Shift bells protect people from their own good intentions. Pride gets praised for resting on time, not for burning pretty. You log breaks because virtue needs proof, especially after midnight. The room thanks you by refusing to invent mistakes. When improvement tiptoes in, you catch it on the ledger before it forgets its name. Fewer coughs in the corner, better colour at dawn sleep that didn't fight back. You shorten the curtain by an inch, widen the window by a finger, test the candle again. The rinse song drops to a whisper, the brazier settles like a cat. You swap honey for broth, and notice appetite remembering its manners. Recovery is simply habit granted momentum. By dusk, the sick room breathes like a well-tuned instrument, quiet and convincing. Leather creaks once as you turn, ash drifts from the brazier like modest approval. Inside the beak, lavender hints at sleep. You'll borrow later, but you're not done. You mark 2 stubborn corners for tomorrow, and thank the candle for its candour. This is medieval medicine, winning with boredom, rinse, water, and polite drafts. Next, we take these habits to parchment, parish records, and mortality rolls, where ink learns to save lives by remembering the right things. You climb the vestry steps at first light, where stone keeps yesterday's chill, and a quill waits like a small, polite spear. The room smells of beeswax and smoke, damp vellum, and the vinegar tang that says someone washed the inkwell as if it were a spoon. Candles stand in a row, each a patient star. Ash drifts like quiet punctuation over ledgers bound in stubborn leather. This is medieval medicine with sleeves buttoned, numbers instead of noise, memory instead of panic. We're cheating death in the Middle Ages by teaching ink to tell the truth slowly. You hang your hat, warm your fingers, and listen to the quill think. The parish clerk greets you with a nod that creaks like old hinges, and a page already ruled in confident lines. "Name's not Rumours," he says, sliding the ledger closer, the way a baker slides dough. Columns wait, household, lane, age guessed by knees and teeth, days ill, windows opened. Another for bells, rung doors, chalked, candles, spent spoons, returned. Arithmetic, you learn, is a kind of blanket when it's honest and boring. The quill taps twice. The day consents to begin. Enter Sunzi. You start with baptisms and bread lists, because beginnings teach you how to spell endings. Who was born under what weather, who slept near which hearth, who borrowed a blanket and returned it on time. Then marriages, proof that lanes still plan picnics for tomorrow. Widen the frame before you measure loss. Hope must get equal margin in the book. Data steadies as if approving your manners. Ink walks straighter when it has context. Now death's written with a gentleness that refuses spectacle. Not gore, not poetry, just fever, chills, swollen nodes, cough, weakness, like clouds passing a neat horizon. You note days between bell and burial windows, cracked a finger width, linens boiled by witch sisterly. If a whole house goes quiet, the margin receives a thin black thread, nothing theatrical. Facts earn their way onto the page. Rumour waits outside with its hat in its hand. The ledger breathes because you make it. You add a small column called mercy, because statistics, without kindness, limp. Bread granted naps, allowed possets fetched from the bakehouse, cats deputized to audit grain. Cats again? The clerk teases, and you nod. Quality control in whiskers and bells. Another column for drafts that misbehaved. Corners circled in chalk and fixed by morning. Arithmetic holds the door, while tenderness carries blankets. Even the quill exhales differently when mercy gets a seat. Diagnosis becomes cartography when drawn with restraint. You map lanes with pins, blue for coughs that argue, red for houses that forgot the rent song, green where windows remembered their finger-width treaty, gold where juniper sweetened the rafters. A glance tells you where to walk next, which poster to lower, which watchman needs a better story. Maps persuade councils faster than adjectives ever could. You discover that charts are just sermons with pictures. Timing wears a cassock here. Bells divide the day into useful paragraphs. Curfew recorded markets opened. Ferries paused for fog. You tally hours of air like coins. An almanac notes auspicious times, mostly to protect people from doing too much when tired. No bleeding under a bragging Mars. No fumigation when wind sits sulky. Astrology becomes logistics wearing a starry hat you don't argue with in public. The sky remains punctual, which is practical. Causes remain modest, because truth has short arms this century. Bad air, egg, flux, childbed. Phrases that keep order without pretending to be microscopes. You add notes. Window opened. Vinegar wash, posset accepted. Priest at threshold. Not to assign blame, but to spot patterns that secretly love being seen. Patterns once discovered behave like apprentices and fetch tools before you ask. That's public health disguised as tidy handwriting. Payments and protection get their own less romantic page. Hazard fees to nurses, soap and straw audited, pegs purchased, ropes replaced before they remember to fail. You write writs for watchmen who keep their swagger in their pockets. Receipts list windows opened, not speeches given. Coins by boring things on purpose, buckets, cloths, sleep. Boredom is the most elegant armour in a ledger. Processions, rites and bells get counted with the same calm as spoons. How many candles to light a lane's courage? How many psalms before silence stops limping? Relics at thresholds, so faith travels the rules instead of breaking them. A ribbon code for doors. Soft ring, baby sleeping. Firm ring, bring broth. No ring, leave bread. Language becomes choreography. Grief learns the steps and wastes less time on furniture. Dignity, you discover, is a policy. At week's end, totals arrive like weather reports for the soul. Fewer coughs in the dye quarter, more rest in the bake lane. 2 stubborn corners taught better drafts. You circle the improvements in green, so eyes want to visit them again. Failures receive plans, not speeches. Lower that poster, move that bench, change that hour. Council nods. Funding becomes pegs and vinegar, not poetry. Progress happens at the speed of maintenance. Before dusk, you sand the page, close the leather, and thank the candle for telling you the truth. Outside, ash drifts from the brazier like modest approval. Inside the beak, lavender remembers your pillow. This is medieval medicine transcribed into habit, rinse, space, boil, breathe, write. We keep the reaper waiting by giving him paperwork he cannot argue with. Tomorrow's column is blank, which is both a risk and a mercy. And now, the churchyards and burial teams wait, spades, psalms, and the quiet craft of honouring the gone without inviting the fever to stay. The grave is measured with ropes that speak quietly, marked by knots, and a prayer, not by bravado. Boards checked for grain, that won't break its promise. Soil cut in neat squares, as if arithmetic could soothe. You shade invited, but not in charge. Sunlight asked to share, and the breeze persuaded to keep its elbows to itself. When the procession arrives, you trade speed for cadence. 2 steps, breathy men. 2 steps, breath, amen. Pole cords warmed in palms, shoulders remembering their duty. Lanterns held at elbow height to coax shadows into courtesy. Children stationed by the hedge with ribbons and quiet curiosity. And the priest pausing at thresholds. So faith travels the rules. Words spill in tidy paragraphs rather than floods. Psalms chosen for their ability to hold silence gently. Names spoken once with care, like a door closed without slamming. Relatives placed where drafts behave and stone does not salt. The bell answering each stanza with a period, never a shout. And incense measured so the air smells brave, not boastful. Lowering is choreography, not spectacle. Ropes pay out evenly, boards mind their manners. Hands change places like well-practiced singers. Breath timed to the priest's nod and the brazier's hush. Earth passed forward by spade, not thrown by anger. And faces kept up where the sky can do its work. After the last amen, order continues as kindness. Ropes rinsed boards, boiled spades wiped to the handle. Cups washed warm, so sorrow doesn't learn a second language. A ledger entry calm as a folded blanket. Name, lane, witnesses. A small column for mercy. Bread sent, walk home arranged, and a cat with a bell promoted to afternoon sun again. You walk the yard to teach weather how to grieve politely. Lanterns levelled, ash drift brushed from the lightstone. Posters straightened where hands will pause tomorrow. Her bundles refreshed, so air keeps remembering its manners. Shutters in the nave set to breathe without arguing. And the rinse bowl refilled because tears still count as salt. Records hold the door while tenderness carries the rest. Parish roll inked. Date, hour, air. Windows opened, candles spent. No gore, no gossip, only the truth impatient. Lowercase. Maps dotted where hedges shelter and where benches should move. Funds noted, for eggs, rope, vinegar, boring things that save dignity, and a margin thread for families promised bread at dusk. By evening, the churchyard exhales like a room you've just taught. Stone cooler, grass less nervous, bell satisfied with short sentences. Beeswax and smoke curled into the rafters like a closed book, and inside the beak, lavender hinting at the sleep you'll borrow later. We're still cheating death in the Middle Ages, not by winning, by waiting well. Next, we'll step into winter quarters, frost, rime, and the stubborn craft of keeping warmth, where breath and hope agree to stay. You step through the lich gate, where the lane yields to grass and names, dew turning the world into quiet glass beneath your boots. Bells measuring grief in patient quarters rather than exclamation points. Beeswax and smoke trailing from the nave like a hand that won't let go, and the vinegar tang of rinsed tools waiting under the yew. This is medieval medicine written on earth. Habit, breath, restraint. The sexton nods, shoulders squared, the way ledgers square figures. Spade heads lined like commas beside a canvas of folded twine. Cords boiled, boards, scrubbed lanterns trimmed to modest halos. A small brazier warming the rope, so knots remember to be kind. Peeled bundles, rosemary bay, tucked where air tends to pause, because even wind needs coaching to behave during goodbyes. Before the procession enters, you tune the yard like a room. Paths raked, mud-boarded drafts taught to flow around the mourners. After, on the porch, testing the days, small politics. Windows cracked finger-width to let psalms exhale without boasting. Choir warned to sing in phrases that don't steal anyone's breath. And cats with bells retired to the wall, auditing nothing but sun. Preparation is a liturgy that refuses theatre. Cloths laid on trestles, bowls set where hands already hesitate, ladles napping in vinegar cups with ribboned corners for local sips, a rinse song posted in pictures for those who can't read sadness, plaster dressings stacked in case hands remember splinters poorly, and a small cordial, courage by the spoon, waiting at the vestry door. You open the door to a house holding its breath against the north wind, stone-breathed cold, pressing through mortar like a polite bully. Rime freckles the inner shutters, the braziers mutter their red alphabet, rushes crackle under boots. Inside the beak, you taste vinegar tang, tallow smoke, a shy thread of rosemary. This is medieval medicine written in heat and habit. Keep air honest, keep bodies warm, keep fires modest. If we're cheating death in the Middle Ages, it won't be with roaring flame. It'll be with discipline that glows. You hang your wide brim hat, flex your fingers, and teach the room to inhale without shivering. Geometry is blanket number 1. Beds slide away from outer walls, where stone chill sulks. Pallets migrate nearer the hearth's lee. Arrow slits get felted screens. Oiled parchment panes learn a finger-width treaty with the draught. Curtains drop like patient boundaries, doorway hangings, bed hangings, wall tapestries that turn wind into rumour. A candle gutter stands at attention. Tiny physics approving your floor plan. When air has lanes, cold remembers its manners. Ropes and ticks become instruments, not furniture. You tighten bed ropes to sleep tight, flip the straw tick so last week's aches forget your name. A featherbed floats above like a silent pardon. A bolster teaches next to negotiate. Wool blankets, fur throws, and sheepskin learn their order. Heaviest on top, itch where linen can referee. Warming pan kisses sheets, then leaves, never lingering to start gossip. Comfort arrives as choreography, not luxury. Fire behaves when you give it a schedule. What? Hearth embers, banked at curfew, the old coverfew, glow like obedient stars. Charcoal brazier glow, stays lone leeward, never bragging under a sleeping throat. Hot stones wrapped in cloth nap in foot chests. Then migrate to beds like reliable messengers. You post a picture rule. Flame, ember, sleep. 3 words, 3 verbs, no surprises. Warmth that remembers to be modest lasts till dawn. Clothes are night's second hearth. Was, it's it. A linen shift breathes first, woolen hose, guardshins, mittens mind, stubborn fingers. A fur-lined mantle becomes a blanket with buttons. A cloth nightcap keeps heat from inventing exits. Boots sleep. By the brazier so morning doesn't bite, ankles into tears. You teach the quiet tuck, a fold at the waist that traps heat without scalding breath. People wake kinder when cloth remembers its job. Steamed as the rest if you keep it literate. A bowl of rosemary and sage sits where drafts pass like messenger birds. Another bowl for hands and cloth, labels fat enough for dusk to read. Juniper threads the rafters so stale corners forget their grudges. Windows keep their finger-width vow. Smoke leaves by the exit you rehearsed. The mid-room candle barely trembles. Proof the room believes you. Food and drink are warmth you can hold with a spoon. Hot posset at Compline, mulled wine for those who worked the gate, warm gruel that negotiates with pride. Bread softened in broth so teeth don't argue with winter. Water brightened with rosemary persuades sips into becoming tradition. You schedule sips like prayers, small, steady, unsurprising. Hunger unclenches, courage returns to the conversation. Work shifts so lungs. Don't. Cold tasks stack in short paragraphs. Wood, water, ash, never in novels that steal breath. Buckets live where elbows expect them. Lids keep rumour from steeping. The beetle counts kindling, not complaints. Cats with bells audit grain, not toes. Poster switch to pictures, because gloves make spelling vain. Boredom again is armour. Pleasant, warm, and famously unfashionable. Diagnosis in winter uses different instruments. 2 questions, 1 look, breath timed to the brazier's hum. Fever, chills, cough that argues. You teach noses to distrust rooms that smell asleep. Smoke thick is never cosy. Blue fingers learn the brick in a towel trick. A poultice of plantain and honey apologizes to cracked skin. Plaster dressings replace rags that lied about being clean. Privacy is a curtain. Healing refuses theatre. Records turn frost into arithmetic. Windows opened, minutes, embers banked, blankets loaned, spoons returned warm. A side column for mercy. Boots dried for a neighbour, nap granted to the tired nurse. Another for corners circled in chalk, where drafts misbehaved. The ledger closes like a careful prayer. Numbers become blankets when they're honest. Council funds pegs and vinegar, not speeches. Policy earns its keep. Ritual keeps despair from breeding. Evening, psalms in the solar small candles. Shorter sentences, doors that say, packs without shouting. Relics rest at thresholds, so faith travels the rules instead of breaking them. Curfew's bell writes commas, not full stops. Life continues in patient clauses. You praise the neatest hearth as if it were carpentry. Pride keeps the fire polite. Gratitude teaches heat to stay. That affluence. Word shall, mont. By last bell, breath fogs less angrily. Floors stop sulking. The stone castle of a house pretends to be cedar. Inside the beak, lavender hints at sleep you'll borrow later. Outside, ash drifts like modest approval. This is bubonic plague medicine at its quietest. Air that doesn't panic, fire that doesn't boast, cloth that remembers you're worth the trouble. We've kept the reaper waiting with embers and habit. When thaw comes, roads will wake, and pilgrims will wander. Tomorrow we'll teach travelling souls to breathe, hostels, milestones, and the springtime art of moving without taking the fever along. Spring wakes the roads with puddles and promises, and you meet both at the milepost. Carts argue in wooden vowels, boots drink yesterday's rain, relic badges wink like tiny reasons. Inside the beak you taste pitch dust, and that steady vinegar tang of rules that travel. This is medieval medicine written in rope and rhythm. Lanes on dirt, breath with luggage, will keep the reaper waiting by turning movement into manners. You tap your cane, left for water, right for rest, pause for posters. Geometry first, because even mud respects a good diagram. Windward path in leeward path, out arrows fat enough for fatigue to read. A chalk line greets every gate. Questions here, rinses there, bread beyond. Benches face work, not faces. Queues bend where hedges already nudge. A candle gutter tests the draft and salutes. Tiny physics approving the road. When air has lanes, tempers put their elbows away. Passes become pulse charts that learn to walk. Origin days on the road in slept rats seen near sacks. Spoken, not shouted. You listen to faces while the clerk listens to waits. A duet that catches lies. Green token means straight through. Grey means shade and water for a second look. Black buys a bed at the field lazaretto, split from rumour by hedges and hymn. Not yet becomes medicine when it shows up on time. Hostels are lungs if you teach them to inhale on the bell. Door rinses at shoulder height. 4 thieves vinegar at the jam like a polite bouncer. Pallets off the wall, away from sulking stone. Curtains 3/4, never boasting. Windows promise a finger-width treaty. Smoke learns the exit you rehearsed. Cats with bells audit grain, not dreams. Rats take up other arts. Candle at mid-room barely trembles. Proof the room believes you. Arrival is choreography, not siege. Boots left by the brazier, cloaks aired leeward hands, humming the rinse song. Ladles nap in vinegar, cups wear ribbon corners, so sips stay local. A poster in pictures, palm, thumb, backs, rinse, repeat, because road-weary eyes prefer drawings. You praise the neatest routine like it's carpentry. Pride works faster than rules. In 5 minutes, the hall forgets to be contagious. Food's the road's quiet doctor and delivers on time. Warm pottage for shy stomachs. Bread softened in broth, so teeth forgive distance. Posset at compline to keep courage from skipping town. Water brightened with rosemary persuades, sips into becoming a habit. You schedule bites by bell, small and steady. Surprises for weather, not for spoons. Hunger unclenches. Conversation remembers its manners. Sleep becomes an instrument tuned by pegs and patience. Bed ropes tightened to sleep tight. Straw ticks flipped until yesterday, quits complaining. A warming pan visits then leaves, no gossip, just heat with good timing. Blankets layer. Linen first for peace. Wool next for purpose. Fur last for pride. Nightcaps keep warmth from inventing exits. Bricks wrapped in cloth pardon feet. Dreams behave when furniture remembers its job. Diagnosis happens in motion with manners and restraint. 2 questions. 1 look, breath time to the braziers. Hum, fever, chills, cough that argues. Those who need shade find it under an awning with bread and a second listen. Plaster dressings replace rags that lie about being clean. A plantain honey poultice apologizes to skin. Thimble cordial persuades appetite back to the table without theatre. Privacy is a curtain, not a performance. Records keep fear from improvising between milestones. Names, tokens issued, windows opened, buckets boiled, cats deputized. Yes, logged. Mercy column, blankets loaned, naps granted, spoons returned warm. Another for stubborn corners circled in chalk, where drafts sulk. Arithmetic holds the door, while kindness carries luggage. Numbers become blankets when they're honest. Weather is an essay. You annotate with fabric and time. Rain? Rah! Canvas windbreaks tilt. Knots learn better manners. Gutters quit their poetry. Heat? No. Shutters shade. Pallets rotate by shadow. Water breaks. Get promoted. Fog? Lanterns drop to elbow height. Bells speak in shorter sentences. Maps switch to pictures. Even the wind behaves when the room knows how. People remember because the building remembers first. Markets along the road, learn your grammar and stop borrowing drama. Stalls face goods, not lungs. Ladles know their corners. Coins bathe by the hour bell. Watchmen trade swagger for schedules. The beadle counts, not scolds. Fumigation threads juniper through rafters where breath cues. Fines by soap. Praise is public and free. Boredom is armor. Trade hums without inventing a chorus of coughs. By dusk, milestones feel like commas in a sentence you've taught to breathe. Ash drifts modestly. The hostler's cat retires with honors. Maps gain 2 kinder arrows. Inside the beak, lavender hints at sleep you'll borrow later. Outside, wheels forget to complain. This is cheating death in the Middle Ages by making travel pleasantly predictable. Rinse space, boil, breathe. Tomorrow we'll turn off the road and into herb gardens and infirmary cloisters, where quiet hands make medicine that remembers names before it remembers recipes. Bring the ledger. The rosemary knows you're coming. You enter the cloister at first bell, where dew beads like small beads of prayer on angelica and sage. Bees rehearse their round vowels, doves edit the morning with gentle commas. Inside the beak you taste vinegar, tang, honey, a rumour of time warmed by stone. Beds are bordered with wattle and patience, rosemary, rue, comfrey, yarrow, plantain. This is medieval medicine in its soft armour. Habit, water, leaf, light. We are cheating death in the Middle Ages by teaching gardens to keep appointments. Geometry makes the garden obedient without stealing its soul. Tall ones, bay, angelica, windward to comb the breezes, low breathers, thyme, chamomile, leeward. Paths wide enough that sleeves don't gossip with stems. A channel of water walks the beds and never splashes the roots. A candle gutter on the windowsill later will test the drying room's resolve. For now, sun memorizes what to warn and what to forgive. Hands learn chores by monastery time, not by panic. Ant. Prime. Cut before heat gets proud. Terse, rinse, and sort by purpose. Sext. Hang in the louvered loft where air behaves like a librarian. None. Turn the racks, whisper to the juniper fumigator to mind its manners. Vespers. Label. Bundles in letters fat enough for dusk to read. Compline. Thank the bees and borrow their patience. Mortar meets pestle with the old low thunder that persuades worry to sit down. Leaves become infusion. Roots become decoction. Peels surrender to syrup. Seeds to cordial. You keep a poultice bench, plantain and honey for skin, comfrey and wine, for bones good mood. A shelf of salves, myrrh for respect, frankincense for breath that sulks. Every jar wears the hour it was born and the mood of the weather. Arithmetic turns into medicine when it knows the season. Diagnosis here. speaks in gentle verbs and warm cloth. Pulse, tongue, eyes like windows, you open to finger with. Fever asks for willow and shade. Fret asks for lavender and a bell with short sentences. Flux wants rose water and rice. Stitches at the soul want time, bread, a listener. You write no poetry in the ledger, only nouns that earn their place. Even silence gets a line, it often behaves after that. The infirmary beds are instruments more than furniture. Bed ropes tightened, to sleep tight bolsters turned so necks negotiate and win. Curtains 3/4 drawn. Privacy that doesn't bully the air. A brazier glow, leeward, never under a throat. Steam bowls where draughts pass like messengers. Nightcaps keep heat from inventing exits. Bricks wrapped in cloth pardon feet. Comfort arrives as choreography, not luxury. Visitors come by the rule of slow kindness. At the threshold, a vinegar sponge waits like a polite bouncer. Hands washed to the rinse, song posted in pictures, palms, thumbs, backs, rinse, repeat. Voices shift to the speed of breath. Tales shorten and remember their manners. Relics rest by the door, so faith travels the rules instead of breaking them. People leave lighter because the room did the heavy lifting. Controversies, humours, stars, bad air, get translated into chores. Open the window when Mars brags, close it when fog tries to argue. No bloodletting on boastful days, no smoke baths when wind sulks. Umek mostly to protect tired people from overdoing. Astrology becomes logistics wearing a starry hat. Nobody has to fight it. Even skeptics like a timetable that prevents mistakes. The dispensary is a chorus of jars that remember who they are. Electuary for those who argue with spoons. Tincture for the quiet brave. Theriac reserved for stubborn evenings. 4 thieves vinegar for doorways that host the world. Labels in big kind letters survive steam and midnight. You measure generosity with the same spoon as rosemary. Exactly and often. Mercy is a dosage form. You keep it on the front shelf. Records keep fear from improvising in the cloister's echo. Names windows opened, bundles dried bowls refreshed. Naps that actually slept. A mercy column. Blankets loaned, letters written, stories listened to their last comma. Another corners circled in chalk where drafts misbehaved. Numbers become blankets when they're honest and boring. Funding arrives as pegs, clothespins, vinegar, not speeches. Weather writes essays on the walk. You annotate with rope and time. Sleet. Canvas awnings stoop. Knots remember school. Paths grit their teeth with sand. Heat. Shutters make shade. Work rotates by shadow. Water breaks. Get promoted. Fog. No. Lanterns drop to elbow height. Bells speak in shorter sentences. Posters switch to pictures. Even the wind behaves when buildings remember. How? People remember because the cloister remembers first. By dusk the garden exhales, bees clock out, and racks stop arguing with the air. Inside the beak, lavender suggests sleep. You'll borrow later. Your ledger closes like a careful prayer. The mortar cools, the pestle forgives. This is medieval medicine, without theatre. Rinse, label, hang, breathe. We keep the reaper waiting by boring him into missing his cue. Tomorrow we'll step into city halls and council chambers, writs, budgets, and the stubborn magic of turning policy into warm beds and clean spoons. You enter the hall where echoes, where robes, benches smell of beeswax, and chalk-dusted ledgers breathe like tame animals under steady hands. A brazier hums in the corner, emberglow not boast, teaching air to behave. Inside the beak you taste vinegar, tang, and ink that remembered to be sober. This is medieval medicine dressed as paperwork, quiet verbs, numbered promises. We're cheating death in the Middle Ages by making kindness sign its name. Hoichola. Geometry earns a seat even here. You sketch lanes for breath and speech. Petitions windward, payments leeward, vents nudged open, a finger whip. Handle gutter on the day's tests, drafts without interrupting anyone's dignity. Clerks sit so their voices flow down, never across faces. Posters switch to pictures. Palms, rinse, cups, return, courtroom literacy. Air gets lanes. Tempers take their elbows elsewhere. Budgets arrive like weather reports. You annotate them with ropes and soap. Coins by vinegar, pegs, straw, cloth. Boring things that rescue mornings. Hazard pay. Become spoons that come back warm and on time. You price cats with bells because grain listens to mathematics. Fines fund wash basins, not speeches. Praise is public, cheap, addictive. Policy turns into pegs that don't lie at dusk. Writs keep doors honest. You draft them in tidy paragraphs. Open windows here, close them there. Boil ladles on the hour bell. Lazaretto rules say, not yet, kindly, with bread attached. Markets face goods, not lungs. Ferries breathe in lanes like streets. You grant a charter to boredom. Rinse, space, boil, breathe. The hall votes yes, because boredom never sends angry letters. Hearings happen in the key of courtesy, not thunder. A miller wants smoke later. You trade in better ropes now. Cookshop begs for more fire. You sell them timing instead. A beadle asks for louder bells. You offer shorter sentences. Everyone leaves with a map they can carry in their hands. Rumour starves when chores have choreography. Records hold the door, while mercy walks through. Ledgers list names, windows opened. Buckets boiled, cats deputized. Yes, logged. A small column for mercy. Blankets loaned, naps granted, fares forgiven. Another for corners circled in chalk, where drafts were stubborn. Numbers become blankets when they're honest and boring. Arithmetic is our quietest night. Supplies move like blood through the city's arteries. Vinegar to doors, soap to benches, rope to sails, straw to ticks. Sign for what you take, return what has a home. Quartermasters trade swagger for check marks and neat shelves. You praise the tidiest storeroom like it saved a life. Because it did. Logistics is just ethics with pockets. Training sounds like lullaby sung to tools. Watchmen learn the rinse song, then teach it with fewer teeth. Clerks practice kindly no until it fits any mouth. Priests rehearse thresholds, faith at the door, fresh air inside. Midwives get ribbons for windows that remembered their jobs. Competence becomes fashionable. Panic looks terribly last season. Rumour is summoned, cross-examined, and sentenced to errands. Chalk that lane, post that picture, lower count those ladles. Gossip dissolves into straighter lines and cleaner buckets. The loudest man wins the duty roster, not the argument. You punish yesterday, not tonight. You praise relentlessly. The city learns to breathe because applause became practical. Weather petitions daily. You grant or deny with fabric and time. Sleet. Canvas stoops. Knots behave. Gutters quit their poetry. Heat. Shutters shade. Shifts rotate by shadow. Sips scheduled like prayers. Fog. Lanterns drop to elbow height. Bells speak in short sentences. Posters go from words to pictures. Because fog steals literacy first. Buildings remember, people follow. Audits taste like vinegar and relief. Coin trays bathe on the bell. Spoons boil. Peels and paddles sign out, sign in. Receipts list windows opened rather than speeches given. You outlaw heroics at closing time. Rest becomes regulation. Council minutes read, like instructions, not fireworks. The city hums in a key fit for sleeping. By dusk, the chamber exhales, ink dries with modest pride. Ash drifts like punctuation that knows where to stop. And inside the beak, lavender hints at the sleep you'll borrow later. This is medieval medicine, transcribed into habit. Rinse, space, boil, breathe, write. We keep the reaper waiting with ledgers, pegs, and practiced quiet. So here we are, lanterns low, ledgers closed, and the rinse bowl cooling on the sill. Tonight you walked the slow miracle of medieval medicine. Not a triumph of technology, but a choreography of hands, habit, and hope. People didn't beat disease so much as they stalled it, negotiated with it, sometimes tricked it. They cheated death in the Middle Ages with vinegar and prayer, with pegs and posters, with gardens that remembered names and bells that divided panic into manageable paragraphs. And somehow, against long odds, many of them lived long enough to sing tomorrow's psalm. As you breathe, notice the small tools that kept showing up. A window opened to a finger's width, a spoon that returned warm, a ledger that told the truth slowly. These are humble things, almost boring. Yet, boredom was the armor. It's the same lesson we carry now. Steady beats clever when clever is late. If you had to keep one habit from this world, one quiet practice to fold into your own, what would it be? The rosemary water at the door. The quiet tuck at night. The rule that praise should be public and frequent. Tell me, too, which scene surprised you most? The dye house learning to breathe? The ferry lanes drawn on water? The churchyard where grief walked in measured steps, so love didn't lose its place? Did some part of you feel oddly proud of those cats with bells, those ledgers that turned fear into arithmetic? Share the moments that stuck, the ones that made you say, well, that's how ordinary people saved each other. And because this is still life, not legend, what boring armor could you use tomorrow? A glass of water beside the bed, a list by the door, a 5-minute tidy saw. The room remembers how to help you rest. History whispers that safety isn't complicated, it's repeated. If someone you know would find comfort or curiosity here, pass this along. Turn our little candle into 2, then 3. Before you drift off, if this kind of quiet, strange history helps you breathe easier, gently tap like and subscribe. Ring the bell so the next story finds you right on time. No hurry, no fuss. And drop a comment when you wake. Which remedy would you keep, and which would you banish forever? I read them all, and they shape what we explore next. For now, let the room settle. Let the ember glow do its modest work. You did enough today. The ledgers can sleep. I'll see you in the next tale, where we'll open another door softly and listen for old lives teaching new lessons.